Hello everyone, can you
Hi.
hear us? Yeah, we are back at last.
We are indeed.
It has been a wild ride, hasn't it?
One hell of a wild ride. But don't worry, guys, we are back and raring to go for season 2.
Yeah, it is going to be a great time, I can already tell.
It should be indeed.
Yeah, anyway, let's talk about what season 2 is going to bring us. We have got a lot of topics lined up for you for season 2, but today we have got 2 great ones lined up for you. Did you want to let them know what we've got?
Yeah, so the first one we're going to be looking at is Winston Churchill and the Coventry Blitz conspiracy.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conspiracy. We're going to be doing that first today, and in the second half we're going to be looking at a very interesting thing called phantom time hypothesis. If you follow us on social media, and you will see we were talking about that today, and it is quite extraordinary, to be honest, that one. But yeah, stay tuned for that. In the meantime, this is Winston Churchill and the Coventry Blitz.
So, like usual, we're going to start off with a bit of background information so you can understand where we're coming from. So, of course, most listeners will already know this, but we'll go over the basic facts of World War II to kick things off. World War II started in 1939 when Great Britain declared war on Nazi Germany following their joint invasion of Poland alongside the Soviet Union. World War II would rage across the entire planet for 6 years, although the majority of conflict happened in Europe, North Africa and East Asia, until Germany and the Axis powers were defeated in 1945. In total, 85 million people were killed during World War II, which at the same time was roughly about 3% of the entire world's population. So to put that into perspective, 3% of the current world population is 228 million people, which was equivalent to the entire population of Pakistan, the 5th most populated country in the world.
So yeah, as we can see, World War II, a huge conflict obviously, but I'm sure you didn't need this show to tell you that, but we just put that into sort of put the numbers into perspective for you. But one of the biggest invasion tactics of the German army heading into other nations was to utilise their air force, the infamous Luftwaffe. Although the Luftwaffe was used across all of Europe, Great Britain faced the brunt of these aerial assaults, mainly because Britain is an island, so obviously you can't send foot soldiers in. They probably get a bit wet. This led to the Blitz, a continuous bombing assault on highly populated cities, military bases and commercial docks across Great Britain from 1940 through until 1941. The Blitz was responsible for the deaths of 40,000 British civilians, 139,000 injuries and destruction of approximately 2 million houses. Some of the cities bombed by the Luftwaffe included London, of course, Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, Glasgow, Belfast, Sheffield, and most relevant to this particular episode, Coventry.
Although there have been 14 small raids on Coventry by the Luftwaffe earlier in 1940, the first large-scale attack happened on the 14th of November 1940. The planes consistently bombed the city for 11 hours straight. This German operation was codenamed Operation Moonlight Sonata and aimed to destroy the factory and production capabilities of Coventry whilst demoralising the population. Coventry's minimal air defence turrets meant they were able to shoot down just one German plane despite firing 6,700 bullets. Over 2/3 of all buildings in the city were either damaged or destroyed, with 4,300 homes being destroyed. In total, 1,256 people were injured and roughly 568 people were killed. It was the most concentrated bombing attack on a single British city during World War II. It's also the first time the Luftwaffe used exploding incendiaries, and they dropped over 30,000 of them.
Yeah, so
that's a hell of a lot.
Yeah, it gives you a real scale on just how brutal this assault was. And on the 8th of April 1941, Coventry was targeted by some 230 Luftwaffe bombers, which dropped a total of 315 tons of explosives. To give you an idea how much that is, a T-80 military tank weighs 46 tons. So 8 tanks worth of bombs they dropped. The damage was colossal, resulting in the deaths of 451 people and a further 700-ish injuries. Hospitals, police stations, schools and even Coventry Cathedral were all destroyed during the attack. But was this loss of life preventable? According to conspiracy historians, Prime Minister at the time, Sir Winston Churchill, may have known about the 1940 bombing attack before it happened, meaning he allowed the populace to be attacked.
Right, so next we have the big questions that we want to cover in the show. So the first one, could Winston Churchill have known about the bombings before they happened? If he did know, why did he let it happen? And is it likely that Churchill would have allowed preventable loss of civilian life to happen?
Yeah, of course.
Definitely some big questions to look at today.
Yeah, of course, this is, I will give a bit of viewer discretion here, or listener discretion. Of course, Winston Churchill is seen as a national hero for a lot of people. So I want you to know that this show was not made with the intention of tarnishing his name. It's not the intention of dragging him through the dirt. It is just one of these conspiracy theories that we felt needed covering. So we are going to do this as objectively. Well, I feel like we've done quite a good job of setting this show out in an objective manner that will give you all the facts, bypassing any political opinions or biases. So we're going to go into it now with intelligence in World War II. So this is a big part of any sort of saying Winston Churchill knew about the attack would of course involve intelligence in some shape or form. So in World War II, intelligence sectors of the military were vital to the success of Allied forces. Several intelligence operations are run by decoding experts, agents in the Nazi army and civilian informants throughout the war, with the most famous of course being the cracking of the Enigma code by Alan Turing and his team in 1941. Of course, if you've seen The Imitation Game you would know that. It's a good film. I recommend it if you haven't. So in short, it is impossible that Churchill did not receive intelligence about enemy movements and strategies during the war effort, but this does not necessarily mean that Churchill knew about the Coventry Blitz in particular.
Intelligence and counterintelligence operations were the source of several key moments in the timeline of World War II for both the Allied forces and the Axis powers. Main intelligence operations from the Allies included the previously mentioned Enigma code cracking, as well as other operations including Operation Ruthless, the Venona Project and Operation Cornflakes.
Yeah,
Bit of a daft name.
Yeah, I recommend you look up Operation Cornflakes. It's actually a ridiculous. I can't remember what it was. I think they tried to sneak like propaganda postcards into boxes of cornflakes and send it to Nazi Germany or something. It was fascinating.
Interestingly, Operation Ruthless was a plan devised by Ian Fleming, the author of the James Bond books. The depth and variety of intelligence received by the British Army means that it is possible Winston Churchill knew about the Coventry bombings before the attack happened, meaning this conspiracy does have something to stand on at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, we've done conspiracies in the past where you sort of think this is literally just like something that could be straight out of a science fiction book. There's no real sort of physical basis for it to stand on. It's just sort of someone's gone, wouldn't it be funny if this was happened? And then it's just turned into a conspiracy over the years. Like the Philadelphia experiment is a good example, I think, of one of them. We did that in our first episode, and honestly, check it out on YouTube. It'll blow your mind about how such a baffling conspiracy could live for so long. Yeah, that's a different story altogether. We're going to carry on with this one. Why would Churchill not act on the bombings? Of course, this is a key part of this conspiracy. As the Prime Minister, you would expect Churchill to do anything to protect his people from the Nazis, so it would make for damaging reading if he did know about the bombings beforehand. Potential reasons for Churchill not alerting anyone to the attack would include wanting the people of Coventry to be angered by the attack, promoting anti-German unrest in the city and encouraging more people to enlist the British Army. But the most likely reason is that Churchill didn't want Hitler to realise that the British had the Enigma code cracked. Even though the British didn't decipher the code fully until 1941, Polish intelligence made some breakthroughs as early as 1939 and handed their findings to Britain upon Nazi Germany's invasion of Poland. As the theory goes, Coventry was sacrificed for the greater good. However, this would surely defeat the point of cracking the Enigma code if we never actually used it to benefit the war effort and save lives. But this was a huge problem faced by Turing and his team. If Britain suddenly started intercepting every single supply run and German attack, then the Nazis would know the Enigma code had been compromised. Britain couldn't afford to lose the Enigma code, as the second instalment of the Enigma code wouldn't necessarily have the same flaws as the first Enigma code, which made it much easier to decipher.
So we do have an Enigma code side note here. So by today's standards, the Enigma code is pretty basic as far as computer programming is concerned, but for the 1930s it was groundbreaking. The issue with the Enigma code is that a letter could not be translated into itself. For example, with Coventry, the C could not be translated into a C for its Enigma code name. The code name for Coventry was Corn, not related to the metal band, however it is spelt the same.
Yeah.
The second Enigma code issue was on the Germans as they finished every message with Heil Hitler. Once Allied forces had translated that final part, they used a lengthy process of elimination to get to the rest of the code words and letter translations. This is how the Enigma code was broken, and Britain didn't want to risk losing this advantage by exposing their knowledge of the Enigma code.
So yeah, leading up to the 70th anniversary of the bombings in 2010, several survivors were interviewed for a BBC documentary. One of these survivors was a woman called Jean Taylor. She was 14 years old at the time of the bombing. This is what she had to say. The rumour was that they decided to sacrifice the few in Coventry to save the many. Nobody has ever confirmed or denied that. And this says a lot. Surely the British government would deny this claim if they knew the attack was going to happen.
So the next thing we're going to look at is I can't read today, I apologise.
Do you want me to do this paragraph
yes,
then?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, so, utilitarianism. This is a term used to describe someone who will always seek the best possible outcome for the most people. The opposite is libertarianism, which will refuse to follow an outcome if it deficits anyone. An example of this is the trolley car paradox. Winston Churchill was not openly utilitarian, but he was imperialist and staunch monarchist despite fallings out with King George V. If Churchill was utilitarian, then it would make his allowance of the Coventry Blitz much more likely, as it would benefit Britain more in the long run if they allow this attack to happen, so they could continue using the Enigma code for future operations. Whether Churchill was utilitarian or not, he certainly wasn't a libertarian.
So next we're going to have a look at some key figures. The first one being F.W. Winterbottom. In the 1970s, he published a book about his time as an intelligence officer in the Ultra Enigma Code Task Force, stating that he delivered intelligence referring to the Coventry Blitz to Churchill personally. According to his account, he gave Churchill the intelligence hours in advance of the attack, meaning Churchill had plenty of time to alert the local government in Coventry so that it could prepare for the attack, or even get the Air Force coordinated to intercept the German planes directly.
On top of this, even non-Enigma code related intelligence was predicting a raid on Coventry as early as 3 p.m. that day. At 1500 hours on the day of the raid, RAF raiders picked up German scout planes over Coventry, which indicated an imminent attack. If this is true, it means the attack could have been intercepted without Britain revealing the fact they cracked the Enigma code.
The next person we're looking at is John Martin. John Martin was the personal assistant to Winston Churchill during his tenure as Prime Minister, and his accounts also suggest that Churchill knew about the raid beforehand. Gathered intelligence on an oncoming German attack was apparently handed to Churchill by Martin in a red box shortly after RAF radars had picked up on German planes in the Coventry area. According to the account from Martin, Churchill read the contents and concluded that London was the target of the attack before he travelled to London himself. Writer and historian Andy Pollock argues the following: whether George Martin's recollection was accurate and whatever Churchill's reasons for saying what he did, the only thing we can be pretty certain of is this: that piece of paper could not possibly have carried the information that the beams indicated London.
Yeah, that's a very interesting approach there, because like it says in the original story, after Churchill read those documents he allegedly received, he automatically assumed the attack was on London. I'm guessing that was based off the intelligence that suggested the size of the attack. They thought one that big would only be worth hitting a real heart of the British Empire like London was. They didn't conceive the idea that it would be for a slightly smaller city in Coventry. But you've got to remember that during World War II, it was like the coast and the docking and the shipping areas that were the ones that were really targeted the most. Or like the steel producing places were hit the hardest. So like Sheffield, Manchester and Coventry as well. So it's worth mentioning that. But there are some counter arguments against this theory, one of which comes from a person called Terry Charman, and he is a representative on behalf of the Imperial War Museum and has commented on this conspiracy theory in the past. He defends Churchill by saying that a small attack did in fact happen in London on that night, meaning that the documents given to Churchill may well have indicated an attack on London was coming. Charman also references John Martin's account, but a different part. Later in Martin's account, he says that he genuinely believed Churchill thought London was the main target. On top of this, Martin was the only eyewitness other than Churchill to this red box incident, which, as you've known on past shows, a limited number of eyewitnesses does dent the legitimacy of a conspiracy quite heavily.
It does indeed. However, Charman confirms that the RAF did in fact discover radar and radio signals indicating the presence of German planes in Coventry earlier that day, but were unable to intercept the communications because allegedly the wrong frequency was used. But no one knows the exact reason why we were unable to intercept the comms.
Yeah, that one does seem like a strange one.
It is.
I mean, I would like to think that the RAF during World War II had better intelligence, given the depth and breadth of our intelligence during World War II. I would like to think that one of them would have gone, hang on, that frequency's a bit wrong there.
You'd think that.
Yeah, you'd like to think that was the case. So that seems strange. And again, stuff like that is what gives this conspiracy fuel for me. Because it's like when we did the JFK conspiracy, there's some very there's some massive oversights that someone should have picked up on.
Yeah, there's stuff that's gone wrong that should have been noticed earlier.
Yeah, people should definitely have noticed that in the time, given the amount of people involved and the expertise of the people involved also. You would just automatically expect them to pick up on little things like this, such as a wrong frequency to scan radars with. But there you go. We've got a few... we've rattled through this one. We've only been going 20 minutes. But we have a few closing arguments left. I think this might take us up to the full half hour. If not, the next one's quite long, so that'll carry us through for the whole hour. Closing thoughts for the Winston Churchill and the Coventry Blitz conspiracy. With all the above points considered, it seems likely that Churchill did in fact know about the Coventry Blitz before it happened, was not aware of how brutal the attack would be, however. The point of not utilising the Enigma code here was to hide the fact we had it broken, so we could use it to stop bigger attacks in future, but there were no bigger attacks on Britain in the future after the Coventry Blitz. Of course, Churchill wasn't to know this at the time, but if the code included the extent of the attack, then this becomes a completely different story. However, there is no proof to suggest that Churchill knew how big this attack would be.
There's also no evidence to suggest that Churchill allowed the attack to happen to irk anti-German feelings in Coventry. The only evidence reason for the attack not being intercepted was to protect the Enigma code while simultaneously not knowing just how big the attack could be.
So, has Churchill's legacy been sugar-coated by history?
Yeah,
it has, massively. Did Churchill know about the Coventry Blitz before it happened?
More than likely.
Yeah, it's given everything that we've explained here, I wouldn't say it's almost certain he knew about it, but he's more likely to have known about it than not.
Yeah.
But can he really be blamed for the losses conceded in those attacks on Coventry?
Well, not really, no, because he wasn't aware of the extent.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were saying, the Enigma code was used. The Enigma code wasn't utilised in this incident because they wanted to save it for future bigger attacks, but there wasn't a bigger attack. But they weren't to know that at the time.
No, they weren't.
No, where you think the major attack happened in 1940, and you're only 12 months into World War II then. It doesn't finish until 1945. Of course, they didn't know it would finish in 1945, but 12 months in, at the time, people were assuming that they'd really dug their heels into this war. It was going to be about for a long time. That taking your chances on that, you would assume there would have been a bigger attack in the future. But there wasn't. It's just sort of it's one of those really unfortunate things where they've tried to make a calculated judgment and they've got the calculations wrong.
But yeah, that is it for the Coventry Blitz conspiracy.
Yeah, let us know what you think of that one, because I was thinking of doing more World War II conspiracies, but of course we will see what your reaction is, because there's an abundance of conspiracies. We could run this show for 100 series and we'd never run out with stuff to talk about. I think,
to be fair, if the audience said they'd love to do that, I would love to do that, because I love learning about World War II.
Yeah, definitely, same. I mean,
it's a very interesting thing to learn about.
Yeah, we put a thing out on Facebook, I think last week, about the Wunderwaffe, which was a Nazi aircraft that was invented, and there's conspiracies about whether it was recovered from a crashed UFO, or if it was a time machine, or if it was built by aliens for the Nazis. It's a really interesting conspiracy. I mean, obviously it's quite a left field, outlandish one, but we love the left field conspiracies on this show. They're the most interesting ones. So we will probably do a show on the Wunderwaffe in future. But for the time being, I'll give you a quick rundown of other shows that we've got coming up. Excuse us for being a little rusty on the show today, by the way. This is the first.
It's been a while.
Yeah, this is I looked up on our Facebook. The last time we did a conspiracy crunch was the 31st of January.
Is it actually been that long?
It's been that long, because the last year's broadcasting Radio Hud finished in March, but we didn't do any shows in February because I was doing work placement for my course. And then I said to Abby, I was like, right, as soon as I've done work placement, we'll go back to Conspiracy Crunch. The day I finish work...
and sorted.
Yeah.
And then Corona came.
Yeah, it's like the day I finished work placement, the lockdown came in. It's the most typical thing. But the benefit of that is we have had a lot more time to write this season. So there should be way more episodes this season than there was last season. That is the theory anyway.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
We get to keep on going.
Yeah. I mean, so far so good. I say so far so good. We started 20 minutes late today because security wouldn't let us in. So far mediocre, I would say.
I mean, we're making up for lost time.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like
we actually managed to get our show today, so...
Yeah, that's good. That is a good thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, part 2, shall we do it?
Yes, part 2.
Yes. Okay, so let's look at this one. This is Phantom Time Hypothesis. It's a very interesting name, and this will blow your mind. It's a crazy conspiracy.
I have a bad feeling I'm going to get some names wrong again, so I will apologise in advance.
It's fine.
This happens quite a bit, as you guys are probably aware, but... well, we'll make do.
So in your defence, I've already noticed one typo in the notes, so I think we can let you off.
Hey.
But yeah, anyway, the background for Phantom Time Hypothesis. In the past, Conspiracy Crunch has covered a few bizarre conspiracies, such as the Philadelphia experiment, which we mentioned earlier, and the Rohan Codex. That's actually our most viewed video on our YouTube channel, so check that one out. Yeah, 250 views we've got for that
nice one.
Yeah. But this one we're doing today may be the strangest so far. Phantom Time Hypothesis is the theory that 300 years of history actually never happened.
So the missing years in question come from the Middle Ages, roughly 1614 AD to 911 AD. And the theory spawns from the idea that of a Holy Roman Empire wanting to legitimise his claim to the throne by reigning for the year 1000 AD. The Roman Emperor in question is Otto III, who officially reigned from 996 to 1002 AD. Otto III was only 21 years old when he died, but still holds the claim of being the Roman Emperor for the year 1000. According to a historian named Herbert Illig, however, Otto III may have gotten away with the biggest lie in history.
Yeah, if Illig's claims are correct, then that would mean we are currently in the year 1723, not 2020. So obviously you've got some big questions about this.
Yes.
So first of all, it was who is Heribert Illing. He is still alive. This is quite a recent theory. And then our other question is, how was phantom time allegedly achieved by Otto III? What evidence is there to support phantom time hypothesis? And we're going to need to leave quite a bit for this last question. What counter arguments are there against phantom time hypothesis?
So, obviously something like this saying 300 years of history never happened. There's going to be a lot of people saying, no, that's not right.
Yeah, we'll come on to that later on in the show.
Yeah. So we're going to start off by looking at Herbert Illig. Before we look at the phantom time hypothesis, let's take a look at the man who theorised it. Illig is a German historian who was born in 1947. In his career, he has earned a reputation for being quite outspoken, and he has attempted to rewrite several historic events. Because of this, he is considered to be a historical revisionist, and his claims on ancient history have made him a predominant figure in catastrophism, the idea that the Earth has been shaped by short extreme events as opposed to slow processes like erosion and glacier movement.
Yeah, okay, you'll love this next bit. Some of Illig's claims include the German Renaissance being historically recorded in the wrong order, the mysterious construction of the Egyptian pyramids and how that actually happened, according to him, and that a huge chunk of Middle Age history is missing, which relates to today's episode.
Illig made the most outlandish claim of his entire career in 1991, however, during his spell as the editor of the German magazine...
Do you want me to do that one?
Past, Present, Future. I'll let Aaron read the translation.
Chickened out with the German one. Vorzeit, Thresszeit, Gegenwart.
In his book, The Invented Middle Ages, the greatest time falsification in history, Illig made his initial argument for his phantom time hypothesis based on observations that we will go into a minute. Illig has become a leading expert in this area and has republished his book multiple times over the years, with the latest edition being released as recently as 2013.
Yeah, Illig still writes to this day despite being 73 years old and owns his own publishing company in Bavaria, Germany. Assumingly because the others think he's too mad to hire him. Sorry, Illig. If you're listening, I apologise. We are going to put Illig's, the link to Illig's books on Amazon Books into the comments if you want to check him out. He's a fascinating guy. Even if you think what he says is a load of rubbish, he's a fascinating guy to look at, honestly. So how was phantom time achieved and what evidence is there to support it? Surprisingly, there is actually some evidence for this, which is completely caught me off guard. According to Illig's hypothesis, this massive gulf in history was created by the Byzantine Emperor. Sorry, that one got me. The Pope of the Catholic Church and the Holy Roman Emperor, three of the most powerful people in the world at this time. As we've already mentioned, this is supposedly to ensure that Otto III ruled for the year 1000 AD to solidify his legitimacy to the throne. When the three of them conspired to achieve this is unknown, so at what point in which year they did this, no one really knows when exactly they did it. But they chose the years 614 to 911 to be fabricated.
Fabrication concept is extremely complicated and includes the falsifying of hundreds of documents in multiple cultures and nations. Illig argues that the entire Carolingian French dynasty was made up by the Catholic Church, along with its leader for a period, Charles the Great. Charles the Great was the first person to unite the majority of Western Europe and was the first universally recognised ruler of the empire from Western Europe in 300 years. Interesting, Charles the Great, or as he is also known, Charles I of the Franks, was himself the Holy Roman Emperor from 800 to 814 AD. So the Catholic Church would have needed to essentially disown one of Europe's most famous and successful rulers to make phantom time work.
Yeah, so already it's on the skates a bit, I think. I highly doubt that the Catholic Church would have thrown one of their most successful leaders under the bus in favour of someone that died when they were 21. Anyway, disregarding that for now, evidence sourced by Illig supports the phantom time hypothesis includes a huge amount of forged documents allegedly from the years 500 to 1000 AD. Illig uses this as evidence, to suggest that potentially all documents from the 300-year period were actually forged by the elite ruling class of Middle-aged Europe to appease their power-hungry Roman Emperor Otto III. Illig states that if it were not for the forgery of these years, Otto III would have ruled from 699 to 705, with the year 1000 AD being the year 703. So I think it's quite interesting that Otto III would actually have ruled for the year 700 AD. So to me, that kind of creates a little scenario in my head of Otto III being told he's going to reign for the year 700 AD. And he goes, wouldn't it be cool if I was the emperor for the year 1000 AD? And then he's just like, yeah, let's just make up 300 years.
Why not?
Yeah.
So, the lack of literature available to the everyday peasants of Western Europe in the Middle Ages would presumably make it easier for the ruling class to skip a century or two without too many people noticing as well. Although this is surely quite a weak expectation and desperately underestimates the average middle-aged person.
Yeah, that is a person from the Middle Ages, by the way, not a person in their Middle Ages.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, we don't underestimate middle-aged people. I'm not too far off myself. I'm 23 later this year.
You're not that old.
Yeah, I am to the average university student, but yeah. So, counter-arguments. Strap in. This is quite a long feature, this one, we will admit.
Oh, yes.
Admittedly, you don't have to try too hard to think of counter-arguments against phantom time hypothesis, but here is a summary. First of all three men that we mentioned that have alleged to have falsified these centuries only had predominant influence over Europe. Even though real documentation from these centuries is hard to come by European mainland expectations, there is plenty of evidence to suggest that this period did happen in Asia through places such as the ancient Japanese kingdom, China, Persia, and the three kingdoms of Korea, which are now known as North and South Korea, of course.
On top of this, all three men who apparently invented the 3 centuries were all Christian, meaning the Muslim, Hindu, Celtic, pagan and Jewish communities had no motivation to go along with Otto III's plan. Although the Holy Wars were yet to begin, it was extremely unlikely that representatives from all these contrasting religious beliefs would come together and help out Christianity while seemingly getting nothing in return. Furthermore, once the Holy Wars did break out, it is unlikely that the Muslim and Jewish rulers would uphold their end of the Phantom Time deal.
Yeah, exactly. It's all very, because one of Illig's claims is that the Holy War hadn't happened, so it would be okay for these religions to help each other out. But that doesn't include the fact that once the Holy Wars do start, like if I was a Muslim ruler and I had Christianity going like, oh, I owe you one, I wouldn't then go, yeah, sure, keep that in the bag while I'm sending thousands of people off into a war against them.
No.
It just wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't in the slightest.
No, it's yeah, it just genuinely wouldn't happen. And here's the big thing. This is my favourite part of this conspiracy, is Illig claims that all of the events that happened from 6/14 to 9/11 did not happen. So, like, they didn't happen at all. It's not that they were moved about in historical timelines to sort of suit the agenda. No, they were just completely made up. None of this actually happened, according to Illig. The death of Muhammad, which happened in 632, the Arab army's capturing of Jerusalem in 638, the Muslim army conquering Persia in 641, the end of Celtic Christianity in England in 663, the Arab invasions of Constantinople, which is the capital of the Roman Empire, which we do have documents of to prove that they actually did happen, which is one of the few documents of that. The foundation of the Bulgarian Empire, the foundation of North and South Korea, the ransacking of Lindisfarne, the invention of gunpowder, the birth of Ivar the Boneless, the Viking settlement of Iceland, the great heathen army led by the sons of Ragnar invaded England, the collapse of the Tang dynasty, and the foundation of Normandy. None of those happened, according to Illig.
There's a lot there as well.
Yeah.
All sorts of backgrounds.
Yeah, it's you notice most of them are sort of Viking or Arab related.
Yeah.
Which kind of proves the point that even though perhaps Western Europe didn't really have a lot going on in that period, the rest of the world was moving like clockwork as normal. I think that was the original motivation for Illig to make this theory, was that he sort of looked at the history books and sort of saw that in the 7th and 8th centuries there wasn't really a lot going on in Western Europe, so that gave him the idea that that actually nothing was happening in Western Europe in those times because it didn't happen.
So he could get away with covering it all.
Yeah.
So finally, the main disapproving point for the Phantom Time hypothesis is star maps and star constellations. Sky maps of the stars are currently accurate and aligned, assuming that the current year is 2020. However, in the year 1723, the constellations will be in entirely different positions to what they are at present. So, unless Otto III managed to move all of space and time, then the Phantom Time hypothesis is undoubtedly false.
Yeah, I mean, you probably didn't need us to tell you that. But it's... I love...
mean, to be honest, it's a cool conspiracy
yeah,
to
it
look
is.
at.
Yeah. I mean, it's completely made up and no truth to it whatsoever, but it is a cool one to look at.
Yeah.
But there is, like I said, when we upload this episode to YouTube, I'll put a link to Herbert Illing's books on Amazon Books in there as well, because it's just really fascinating to look at this stuff. However, I do think most of them are in German.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's probably going to be some English translations or whatever.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Your preferred language. There will be translations out there somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you really like this kind of stuff, it is an interesting read. So I would, if you're interested in this conspiracy in particular, I would definitely recommend you have a look at his books.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like...
We're not sponsored or anything, by the way.
No, we're not at all.
We're just interested.
Yeah. I wish we were sponsored.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, looking at Phantom Time hypothesis, Illig means well. I don't think he's doing this intent. I think he genuinely believes that he's right. He's not like the Philadelphia experiment founder where he just did it for commercial profit. I think Illig genuinely believes he's right on this.
Yeah.
And you can't fault him for that, I guess. But at the same time, it's sort of like saying there's not much evidence of the Middle Ages. But yeah, the year 614 was 1,400 years ago. I reckon if we've got our sign-in sheet in the studio here, if I dug that into a hole and came back in 1,400 years' time, there probably wouldn't be much left of it.
No, there wouldn't be, to be honest.
No, so it's stuff like that you sort of think, come on, you must have considered that. But, I mean, since 1991 he came up with this theory, so it'll be 30 years old next year, this theory.
Jeez.
And he's still going now. He still writes about it. Like we said, he released a updated edition of it in 2013. But he's done multiple volumes on this topic. It's really quite interesting.
It definitely is, but...
Yeah. But again, Lord of the Rings is interesting as well. It doesn't mean that's true.
I mean, no, I'm joking. I'm joking. I wish Lord of the Rings was real, but
Don't we all?
is that it for today?
Yeah, I believe
everything.
that is it actually. Yeah. So even though we started late, we've managed to finish at the same time. Efficiency. That's what that is.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely not because I didn't write enough notes.
No, we're just on the ball today.
Yeah, we are on
Yes.
But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in
Yes.
to the return of the Conspiracy Crunch.
Thank you very much.
It
you
feels
guys for
it feels
listening.
really good to be back.
It feels so good to be back. I've missed
Yeah.
this so much.
Yeah, it's
And I hope you guys have missed it as well, because we enjoy doing this and we do this kind of for you guys as well, getting interested in this kind of thing. So I hope you're glad that we're back.
yeah, because we're normally on the show when we do like the 2 half-hour ones. We do one that's quite well known and one that's not that well known at all. Because not only do we like to analyse ones that are really famous, but we like to give ones that we're quite interested in that don't get enough exposure, a little bit of spotlight, just to get them out there a bit, like the Rohan Codex in Season 1, for example. That is something that I'm hugely interested in, but no one else seems to have heard of it. So I thought, oh no, we'll do that on Conspiracy Crunch. And yeah, it's fascinating. So yeah, again, if you don't already, look us up on YouTube, subscribe to us. We are on Facebook and Twitter as well. Do we have an Instagram? No.
I don't know. I don't
we
think
don't.
we have an Instagram, but we do obviously have YouTube, Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah.
Check us out. We do post just some like intriguing thoughts and queries and just small little conspiracies every now and then, just to like pique your interest between shows.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what we'll cover in our episodes, but if you guys do have anything you want to cover at some point, let us know. We'll see about scheduling it in, because we'd love to hear what you guys think and what conspiracies interest you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, there is no end to the amount of conspiracies that we could do. Like, we could do this show for 100 seasons and we would never run out of stuff. But that also makes it difficult to pick ones to put on the actual show. So if you do have any recommendations, then do send them to us. Yeah, it would be really great. We do like getting a bit of variety in there, because we don't want to be like, oh, here's a UFO one. Here's another UFO one. Oh, another UFO one.
Yeah,
we don't want to. We want to mix it up a bit.
There is an endless amount of UFO conspiracies. I think there's only so many we can do on the show before people are like, this is
yeah, another
boring now,
one.
pick something new.
Yeah.
So we try and keep it varied for you guys. but
However,
yeah.
we've not done Area 51 yet,
Oh,
so we'll probably be doing
yes,
that at some
we
point.
will be doing Area 51.
Yeah.
You have no choice in this. I apologise. We are doing it now that you've mentioned it.
Yeah. Some of them you're not getting a choice on. We are doing Bob Lazar. We are doing the death of Chris Benoit.
And we are doing the fact that pigeons aren't real.
Okay.
Aaron
Well,
doesn't like the idea of this, but I want to do
No,
it, so
I mean-
we'll probably do it.
I mean, we just did Phantom Time Hypothesis. It's about as believable as that.
Oh, come on. Don't be so mean.
But yeah. Anyway, that's the end of the show for episode 1. Thank you so much for tuning in.
It's been great being back, and we will see you next time. I
Yeah.
am Abigail Murphy.
And I'm Aaron Chandler.
Bye.
Bye.